Now, when it comes to building financial freedom, there's so many paths for people to get there. One of them is to pick up a side hustle to start your own business. Another path, which seems to be a big trend, which is people starting to live with their parents in order to save so much money to get to that path. On CNBC, they recently had a video that was quite interesting, and I want to share with you guys and give you guys my comments because I think this topic is really, really important.
27-year-old Victoria Franklin has been living with her mother in New Jersey since she graduated college in 2019.
I saw all of the money that I was saving, and I thought, maybe I should stay home for a little bit, and I didn't feel an urgency to move out.
Not everyone is enthusiastic about this trend.
You guys are making six figures together. You can't tell me you can't afford a house. They just don't want to spend their money.
Told ya.
Now, that part right there just shows you really how society looks at people that stay in their parents' house to try to save money and to buy a house or to save money to pay off debt or whatever it is, right? That is what you're going against when it comes with society. Society frowns upon people staying in their parents' house. They think you need to be independent, go on your own, and in many cases, people are going out and they're struggling. They don't have the funds, right, to be able to live on their own. They don't. It's like society just wants you to just be in that misery in order for you to just learn, get stronger, and get better. And then they believe you're going to come out on the better side of things on the end. But we know that's not always the case. A lot of times people go through that scenario because that's what society is telling them to do. Then they're struggling, they're behind, and they end up going back to their parents' house in a bad situation. Now they don't only have just student loans, okay? They're not only trying to save for the house. Now they might have credit card debt. Now they might have a car payment. There's so many things that's going to be involved with now going back to your parents' house when going there in the first place is not that bad of an idea. But as you see from what her aunt said, that's exactly what happens in society. People just frown upon people who try to do things differently than the way that they did.
My name is Victoria Franklin. I am 27 years old, and I live in my childhood home with my mother and my boyfriend.
Victoria graduated from the University of Miami in 2019 and moved in with her mom when she was looking for a job.
After I saw the cost of living and things like that after I graduated, that maybe I'd be home for about a year.
More than half of Gen Z adults say they don't make enough money to live the life they want due to high cost of living.
I ended up bartending and waitressing until October, where I got my first offer, so it did take a little bit longer than I expected. Currently live at the Jersey Shore, and I was commuting into New York City, which takes about 2 hours each way. And I thought, in 6 months or so, I'll move into the city, be closer to the job, and the pandemic threw a wrench in those plans.
Victoria now works a fully remote job, which she says she probably wouldn't have if it weren't for the pandemic. Without a commute to worry about, she was able to stay at her mom's for longer.
Now, what I find interesting is this. She says she went to University of Miami. I'm hoping she went with a free ride because that is a very expensive school. You see, your school choice is really important in order for you to hit financial freedom. If you go into a school like University of Miami, which is extremely expensive, that's a private school, and it seems like she actually lived in Jersey, so she probably paid out-of-state tuition for a bit while she was going to that school. That's not a good thing to do, okay? So off the bat, she put herself in a bad position, but not to beat up on her, okay? Because a lot of us make bad decisions on the colleges we choose. But besides that, okay, she already went to the college. She's dealing with the debt. Besides that, it's not a bad thing for her to live with her parents to try to clean up her debt in order for her to go out living on her own in the future, okay? Because it is true. It is extremely expensive now, and so many people are carrying the student loan debt while they're, going out, trying to get their first job, living on their own. It's really not the best ideal situation. I understand back in the days, that was it. Everyone was saying, you go out on your own, you made that mess, you clean it up, and you clean it up on your own. That seems to be the American way, right? Which is when you're 18, get out of your house and you figure it out. But to me, this all works if you have communication. You see, and that's where I think most of the trouble is, that people do not have that communication. They don't let the parent know, hey, listen, I'm going to stay, and I'm going to stay for a year, and this is what I'm going to do. And after a year, then I'm on my own, and I'll be out your way, okay? In the meantime, I'm going to help you pay this, because it's a win-win situation as well. Because let's be quite honest, a lot of these parents, they did not do that well financially in the future. So they will probably appreciate the help that you're giving them as well. And they probably would appreciate the bonding time, especially if you're respectful and they understand exactly what your plan is. I think the problem is with me is a lot of people just go out, make mistakes, come back to their parents' house, and they bring that mess into the home, right? They bring that mess into the parent's home, and now it causes a whole big level of frustration between the parent and the child. Because, of course, a lot of us would like to take the easier route, and that seems to be the easier route is staying with your parents and then just not really having a plan and trying to figure things out while you're there. You can't do that. That's just where things get really bad, all right? But in the same time, you have to understand that people are not going to agree with what you're doing. Society just does not agree with people, living with their parents. They don't agree with that. And sometimes you try to get in a relationship or whatnot. A lot of people don't understand that you're living with your parents. To them, it's a sign of weakness. So you got to get over it. Okay, you got to get over it, because if your main goal is to hit financial freedom, then you got to do whatever it takes. And you can't let people, outside your home dictate what you do and how you handle your finances.
It's a lot harder for young people today to save up for, markers of the American dream than it was for previous generations. Part of the reason we see this escalation of young adults not leaving the nest or returning to the nest is this idea that it was harder and harder for them to weather shocks. And so, for example, if they suffered a layoff or they suffer some sort of health shock or they got in a car accident, if they didn't have any additional credit to weather that shock, they would end up moving back home. The financial stability of young adults, their ability to pay for things if they got into an emergency, was one of the big factors influencing whether or not they were living on their own or living with their parents.
Now, the whole, the shock situation where if you're living on your own, if anything happens, you have to come back to your parents' house. I'm not sure about that. I don't agree with that. I don't think you should be, because listen, you cannot predict the future. So you cannot just be worrying about so many things, all right? But when you're living on your own, because that is just part of just being responsible. Things are gonna come up. You can get a flat tire, you might lose your job. All those things come up. But if you have a good relationship with your parents, then yeah, they can help you out during those situations. And let's be extremely honest, that is usually the case, right? Whenever you're in the bind, you call your parents and you ask them for help and they give you help. But I think that help should be given to someone while they're in the grind, okay, while you're in the struggle, to just help them out. That way they could build some resilience rather than just running back to the home. You see, it depends on what you're trying to achieve here. If you're trying to achieve independence, right, and living on your own, then yes, go on your own and you figure things out, okay? But if you're trying to build financial freedom, right, you're trying to start your life but the right way, and try to do it in the most minimum amount of time, because you don't want to be living in your parents' house for that long a period of time, then, living with them, then it's okay. But it's just, you can't have it both ways though. You can't have the easy path of just living and thinking that whenever something bad happens, your parents are going to take care of you. It's two different things going on here. And I think that's the problem that we see a lot. People get confused with that. People see someone living in their home as if they're fearful to live on their own. And I think in some cases that is the case. But if it's for financial freedom, then yeah, I get it. So with her, it's kind of tough, right? That's never going to go away. Emergencies are just part of life. It's just part of life. And you would need to deal with it while it happens. And also, this hasn't been mentioned, but what's wrong with having roommates? Right? What's wrong with reducing your expenses as much as possible by having roommates? It is an option. It is an opportunity, because let's be honest, right? A lot of us, in your 20s, you want to try to enjoy life and do things and not have someone looking over your shoulder about, your times you come home and your boyfriends or your girlfriends or whatever the case may be. You don't want to have that, right? Some people do not want to have that situation, but I get it. I mean, going with your parents' house, especially if they need help as well, then you might as well go that route, because you can help them out in the meantime. But if they don't need that help, right? If they don't need your financial support, then living on your own and having some roommates will probably be the better option.
A significant number of Gen Z adults and millennials lack emergency savings. In fact, 46% of millennials and 32% of Gen Z have more credit card debt than emergency savings.
Now, even though that number sounds extremely alarming, I'm not that surprised. I am not that surprised. It said the average person doesn't have $500 in a savings account. I mean, $500 in a savings account, you really will be struggling if you can't have $500 in your savings account. So to show those numbers, I'm not that surprised, because last time I checked, the average credit card balance is $6,000. Okay, it's $6,000 per U.S. household, how much credit card debt a person will have. So I'm not that surprised, because the average person does not have $6,000 in their savings account. So that makes sense. This video there is really interesting because, first of all, I'm Hispanic, right? And in my community, there's like this unspoken rule, which is why when I seen this video, I was like, I was a little queasy about it, where it's like your parents come to this country to sacrifice and they make it like you are like their prize winner, right? Like you are their American dream. Like they live an American dream through you. And a lot of times that communication when you're younger is not discussed with you, which is when you get older, I'm now going to depend on you, right? And usually it's the parent saying that to the child. And you have no idea. Like you literally have no idea. You start dating, you start moving, living on your own. You might get married or whatnot. And then once their job starts slowing down, not making enough money, it's kind of like, okay, now it's time to help me. And you're looking around like, what? Because in America, that is different from a lot of places people come from. My parents come from Cuba, right? I know Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, it's all different where they take care of the elderly, right? They even move in with them in the household. But in America, that's not the case. It's not the case at all. You just want independence, and doing things on your own. So that's why I feel like having that conversation with your parents will help you out tremendously. Even situations where you might need to take care of them in the future, you need to have that conversation. And if you are, graduating from college, you have all this debt, you might as well help them now that you have no relationships. If you're not in a relationship, you have no relationship and you're starting out life, help them out now as much as possible. Okay, because just being in a household and handling some bills will definitely help them out, but it'll help you out tremendously. And hitting financial freedom will be an awesome thing to do. And then once you're living on your own, if they do need help, you do have the flexibility to help them out, right? Rather than going on your own and figuring things out, you will not have the flexibility to help them out. So I find that interesting, and I want you guys to let me know. Drop a comment down below if you guys have been in a situation where you moved into your parents' house in order to rebound from something bad that had happened, or to just strictly build wealth, right? Me personally, myself, that has happened to me before. I had to live in my parents' house when I was going through some tough times in my 20s, and then I bounced back and I got out, right? But I mean, I was like, I didn't want to bother them at all. I was really quiet, handling my things, handling my bills, got to take care of my business, and then I moved out as quick as possible. So that option is there, but I never was reliant on my parents. So drop a comment down below and let me know if you have any experience, or if you know someone who is going through that, because this is a trend, right? And also, unfortunately, the other trend is calling people who do that like a loser, calling them names. Some people are saying they'll never date someone who lives in their parents' house. So I find that really, really, really interesting. Catch you guys on my next video. Peace.